slides. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. My name is Dobana. I'm the sales manager of Forescout in Eastern Europe, Israel. I'm based in Israel together with Kobe.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. My name is Kobe Ganali. I'm the sales engineer for Forescout in Israel, CIS, and Eastern Europe. And I'm very happy to be here with you today.
So we'll explain what we are doing in Forescout in a few slides, and then we'll go straight to the real thing, to the demo. So Kobe, if you can
yes,
share the slides, please.
Sharing my screen. One moment. Right. So, can you guys able to see my screen?
Yeah. Perfect. So, as Andrei said, that's correct. 22 years ago, we founded as a startup in Israel. So it was 22 years ago. Now we are bigger. After 22 years, now we are an American company. Still, the R&D is based in Israel. Around 500 people in Israel, R&D. And when it comes to customers, we have customers all over the world. Okay. With 22% of Fortune 500 in any sector, any vector, which means financial sector, defense, healthcare, high tech, and so on and so on, education, and so on and so on. And we have another headquarter, as I said, in Israel and in Dallas, US. So basically, 22 years ago, when Forescout founded, we actually started as an IPS and honeypot product, okay? And only around, it was 2006, we did a spin-off to the product and moved to the NAC, when back then the NAC actually started to bubble up. And if you remember, all the bring your own device started. So we understood that we fit to this world, and we spin off the product to be a NAC solution. But over the time, we did evolution to the product. And also the NAC, as Andrei showed in his slide, also the NAC itself did an evolution. Even Gartner started to talk about NAC around 2014, okay? So the evolution that we did, probably if you can jump to the next slide, brought us to what we do today. So NAC became a use case, a strong use case, but when it comes to NAC solution, you need to take it with multiple use cases that connect to the NAC itself, to the use case as NAC itself. So the evolution that we are actually today is, you know what, I will rephrase it. 22 years, what we are doing, we are dealing with devices. This is our bread and butter. And devices can be, in the campus, the IT device that we know, laptops and so on. In the IoT, we have multiple devices, like printers, cameras, and stuff like that. But also in the data center, in the cloud, there are also devices, although they are virtualized devices, but still, these devices, the attack surface is very similar to what is going on in the campus. And we need to see what is going on over there. And also in the OT. OT can be SCADA, but also can be building automation. What is going on with my HVAC PLC? What is going on with my elevator PLC, and so on and so on, okay? We see more attacks in this area. So when it comes to these devices, we're actually providing a few layers of visibility, and then with that coming a few use cases. So the first use case is the asset inventory. We know about all of these devices to tell the customer who is the device, what is the device, and where it is connected, okay? So we build the enterprise of things asset inventory, and with a very classified asset inventory for each of the device with a deep profile, and we'll show that in the demo. And then we go to the next phase, which is actually the IoT security. We want to do the assessment for all the IoT by the way, for any device, okay? But when it comes to IoT security, we want to understand exactly what is going on with this specific IoT. So we go inside and we'll show that in the demo. We do, for example, SSH to the IoT device, if this is a printer, if this is a camera, and we check the credentials, first of all, and we check what is going on inside, the applications and so on, and see if it is clean. Now, when it comes to clean, then another use cases are coming, compliance and NAC. Okay, NAC is a use case where we actually say it's like 0 and 1. It's like you are the device is in the network or out of the network. But we want to make sure that once this device is in the network, it is clean. Okay, so we check the compliance. It is actually standing in the standard of the company. So if it has the right applications, the right versions of applications, and so on and so on. And when it comes to NAC, then we do, .1x, I mean, pre-connect and post-connect, or hybrid. Because not everywhere you can do .1x if you want to do .1x, and what you do with the other device that cannot do .1x. So we can do that. We can do the hybrid mode, and then we actually once the device is clean and it is in the network, we want to make sure the device behaves. So if I'll go back, with all of these devices, we know who is the device, what is the device, and where it is connected. Now the device is clean and it is in the network. We want to understand now how this device behaves. Okay, because still, if this device passed all the authentication, authorization, and all the stuff, now maybe this device talks to a specific point, then that it doesn't need to talk to. For example, the finance user speaking to a campus switch, telnet. Why it needs to do that? Okay, so we can see that, and we want to understand why, and how many times it is trying to do that. Okay, and so we want to understand the behavior, if this is a mistake or something else. So with that comes the use case of segmentation. So when it comes to the use case of segmentation, we want to understand how the devices behaves, and then to do something with that. By the way, forgot to tell that we are agnostic, we are agentless. In some cases, we have agent, when we will talk about that. We are agnostic to the network, so we don't care if the customer has Cisco, Juniper, Arista. We can work with all the infrastructure, so we are agnostic to that. And as I said, agentless. And we use different methods of enforcements that are actually different points of enforcement that are in the network. Okay, so if this is in the infrastructure, in the networking part, so we can connect to the switches and use them as an enforcement point. Or if this is in the when it comes to the firewall, so we can speak with any firewall that is in the network. If this is a checkpoint, Palo, 40, and so on, and use them as an enforcement point. And when it comes to data center and cloud, we can also communicate with Amazon, Azure, soon Google Cloud, and also now we can connect to NSX, vSphere, and use these platforms as enforcement points. So we are actually trying to get to any point in the network and make it stronger. So when it comes to segmentation, we want to understand how the device behaves, and then use these specific enforcement points to segment these devices. So we actually help customers to go into the segmentation projects that usually is a long projects. Now, the next thing that we want to understand is the risk vector. So now that we know who is the device, what is the device, where it is connected, and how it behaves, we also want to understand what is the criticality of the device. So next month, actually it is next week, we're going to GA another use case module. By the way, all of these are modules, okay? So we're going to GA another module that understand the criticality of each of the devices in the network. If this is an IoT device, if this is an IT device, and so on. And by that, to maybe to segment the network accordingly or do something else. And we will talk about that as well in the next slides and demo together with Kobe. Now, recently we acquired security CyberMDX, and before that we acquired Security Matters in 2018. With these two companies, we extend our capabilities to communicate with two new worlds. With the Security Matters, the OT security comes, so we can do DPI to the OT and understand how the OT environments, when it comes to actually OT, it is SCADA, BMS, as I said, and so on. So we want to understand how this device behaves, and in some places to be, I mean, we need to be passive, but in some places to bring our capabilities to be an active and do something over there. So like to do a NAC in the OT area, okay? And we also talk about that. And with the acquisition of CyberMDX, we have now the capabilities to understand and provide a risk management in the healthcare world, okay, with the IOMT devices. So not only to provide a visibility that is, I mean, this is our basic stuff that we do, but also to understand and provide a risk management into the healthcare. And you know, when we have now, I mean, for 2 years we have the COVID, and the healthcare is a big issue when it comes to cyber security attacks, and to understand the supply chain of this area. So with that capabilities, we can provide that. And last but not least, the orchestration. So I've mentioned that we can communicate with different infrastructure, but the idea is to be able to connect to any third party that we can connect in the network. I mean, we have more than 100, almost 150 integration that we can connect to, like SIEM. I mean, it's a bi-directional APIs that we have. So this is with SIEM, with firewalls, with EDRs, and so on, in order to be able to be proactive in some ways, and to extend our segmentation capabilities. For example, to understand if this is to understand and get IOC from a firewall, IOC from a SIEM, and then be proactive and hook this IOC in the network and do something with that. Okay, so this is when it comes to orchestration. So the idea is to be, you know, to be able to do as much as automation in the network, and to be a platform that works for the customer and not vice versa. Okay, so this is in a nutshell. I can say what we are doing as a platform. So this everything here is a platform, as I said. It is not different products, although with the IOMT and the OT, these specific modules, we can go on a differently separated independent products, but at the end, everything is connected. So we are one platform with different use cases, and you know, we fit to ourselves with every need of our customers. So from this point, I will give it to Kobe to continue from this point. By the way, ask any question. If you have a question, you can put it on the chat, and if needed, we will stop and we answer the questions.
Yeah, thank you, Ido. So yeah, please, guys, we will try to do it as interactive as we can, and hopefully I will answer all your questions during the presentation or during the Q&A section. So to summarize, what Ido is trying to say is that we actually deal with visibility. So we have like 3 different layers of visibility in our platform. The first one is what we are doing for almost 2 decades, is looking at the endpoint itself, right? So we try to understand what is the endpoint, where it is connected, which user is logged into that endpoint, what type of vulnerability this endpoint has, and so on and so on. And the second layer of visibility that we now have in our capabilities is to understand how this endpoint is behaving across multiple domains of the network. So we are not concentrating on the campus area or the data center area or OT ICS environment, but we are looking on top of that with iSegment, and we have a second layer of visibility of your network. Okay. Now the third level of visibility is actually combining the two first layers, because when you have a very deep visibility on the endpoint, including the visibility on the endpoint behavior, then you can calculate the risk per each individual IP address, and by that you can actually give a risk score to your organization, to your entire organization. So how we can actually discover 100% of the devices, because this is obviously the first thing that we are doing when we deploy Forescout in the in any type of network. So we are collecting, we are using different types of data collection techniques. Now, as you can see here, I divide those into 3 different groups. Now, the techniques that we are using are not mandatory per each network domain. So, for example, in ICS/OT environment, you will use network passive discovery only in most cases, right? Whether in IT or let's say data center, pure data center, or cloud, probably on the campus you will run some active queries towards the endpoint, either if it's physical or virtual environment that you want to query. So basically you can choose and you can fine tune every single data collection technique that you are seeing here per each, let's say, domain part that you want to deal with. That obviously include pinpoint queries for endpoints, for specific endpoints. If we'll take, a short example is if you have an ICS/OT environment with an pure IT device, like a Windows device, then you can pinpoint and query this specific device even in your OT ICS environment. And this is where we are using our entire capabilities in some specific cases where the customer can get value from our visibility and from our deep integration to the infrastructure. So let me just explain in a short how we collect the data, and obviously then I will show it in the demo as well. So we are using, as I said, we are using 3 different groups of data collection techniques. The first one is the network passive. So as I mentioned, in ICS/OT, in most cases you will run our IDS module, where we analyze the OT and IT protocols. We are now can analyze over 200 protocols. Now 150 protocols, which is official, and another 50 protocols that we can add as an add-on scripts to our system. By the way, I can share the compatibility, the full compatibility list of our protocols after the session with the presentation. But not only for ICS/OT environment, because we have capability to analyze every single piece of data that comes to the network, we also are able to detect malicious activity within the pure IT environment. So, for example, specific type of scans, port scan, HTTP byte, and so on and so on. And I can show it in the demo as well. But the main point is to detect any malicious activity, even if the host is legit to get access to the network and is, let's say, comply and everything and so on and so on, but he behaves in non-legit way. We can detect that, and obviously we are using this technique also to have a greater information, a greater visibility on the endpoint itself, because we are seeing all the TCP stacks, so we are able to analyze which type of device in a very quick way. Now, where we are not able to get span from the network, obviously you cannot span the entire network towards a centralized, let's say, appliances. We have 2 options. One is to use mini sensors. It's like, let's say, Raspberry Pis that you can put in your access layer. It's very cheap and it's very effective. The second option is to use the metadata flows like NetFlow, SFlow, flexible NetFlow, IPFix, flow logs if you want to see traffic coming from the cloud or towards the cloud. But the main point is to have some kind of visibility, okay, instead of having a blind spot. Now, as Ido mentioned, when we are dealing with network access control, we support both a pre-connect and post-connect approach. You can run 802.1x, you can run post-connect approach either with CLI or SNMP, but you can also use us as a radius proxy. So for example, if a customer already have a network access control solution in his environment, let's say a radio server like NPS, FreeRadius, I don't know, Cisco ICE, ClearPass, whatever, they can use our visibility platform and then use the current network access control solution as an enforcement technology by getting the data from Forescout and then share it with their own solution, which is very limited when it comes to endpoint visibility and network traffic visibility. Now, we have bidirectional integration with the infrastructure, as Ido mentioned. We collect either it's SNMP traps or syslogs or whatever logs that you can send us from the infrastructure itself, from the switches, VPN concentrators, firewalls, switches, whatever security tools you may have. The point is to have as much as data as we can, either with our own techniques that we are using and by integrating with third-party vendors on the network. And we're also doing some active querying towards those devices. So we query user connected to the VPN concentrators. We are connecting to the switches and query the CAM tables, the ARP tables, and so on. And we also integrate to the hybrid cloud. So we have AWS, Azure, GCP is coming next, probably by the end of the first half of this year. And we integrate obviously with the on-prem virtual environment. As you can see here, VMware, either it's a vSphere or NSX, and we can use those integration also as an enforcement points. Like for example, NSX, we can apply security tags based on the visibility that we have on the virtual machine. Now, we also have a very, let's say, precise way to query the endpoint itself. So first of all, we are using Nmap. Now, it is a very selective Nmap. You can exclude a portion of the network. Let's assume that we are talking on ICS environment. You can exclude from the deployment, for your deployment, the ICS environment for any scan, and you can fine-tune the Nmap scan to query specific things and search for specific output for fingerprinting or for, let's say, as a condition for a trigger of a policy. Okay, so you can fully customize the Nmap scans, but it's very, let's say, it's very useful tool to use if you want to get together the data from the endpoint. Now, we have two techniques to query operating systems. We have the remote inspection, which is our agentless approach. So if we are talking on Windows machines that we are using WMI or RPC. If we are talking on Linux or Mac, we are using SSH with admin credentials. It does not have to be root, but it does have to be an admin privilege. And we have the agent option. Now it's totally optional. Few words about the agent and the main use cases. So first of all, the agent is a very light. So what I mean is that it's like 2 meg when you download it and 1.5 meg when you run it on the memory. We are not doing any enforcement with the agent. So it's not an active agent that blocks the traffic. It's not an agent that you VPN the actual traffic towards some kind of controller. So we are not interfering the endpoint itself. We use the agent just to gather data on the endpoint. So, and by the way, it comes in multiple flavors. So we support all the major Linux operating system. Obviously, we have it for Mac and Windows, and we have full compatibility list in our website. But we support the major ones. Alongside with that, you can run it as a service, as an application, or in dissolvable mode. So this is one-time use of the agent. So once you reboot your computer, then the agent is gone. Now, this is very good, and this relates to the first use case of an agent, which is BYOD. So if you have BYOD scenarios, you can actually redirect the user to external portal or our own portal and onboard the endpoint, the actual computer, once installing the agent. So then you can have a full visibility on endpoint that you are not really managing. It's not part of your domain managed devices. The second use case, which is a very important one, is the real-time information on the endpoint itself, right? So if you think about it, if you have 10,000 Windows machines on your environment, if you will run WMI, let's say any remote inspection technique, you will not be able to run it every 5 minutes on the network, because eventually the load on the network and the load on the endpoint will break something. So the agent is doing the opposite way around. We run the same scripts, but local on the machine and not over a network, and we send only the delta. So if, let's say, if it's a new application that is open up on a Windows machine, then we know about it immediately. So any external device that's connected to the Windows machine, we know about it immediately. So the real time is probably the strongest use case of using the agent, but it's totally optional. Now, whatever I will show you in the demo is totally agentless. So there is no difference of the visibility, the amount of data that you can collect if you use the agent or use the agentless approach. It's the same visibility. It just, as I mentioned, the real-time scenario that you may want to use in certain type of use cases. So with that said, you can see a very nice layout, a little bit about the architecture. Forescout, the Forescout platform is supported by various of, let's say, deployment types. So you can deploy Forescout either on-prem only. You can do it hybrid. Part of deployment is on-prem, the other part is over cloud. Again, we support AWS and Azure. And GCP obviously is coming next. And we support centralized deployment and distributed deployment. So if you are a distributed, let's say, a company with branches all over the world, then you can actually put multiple sensors, multiple appliances around the world. You will manage them with only one single management server, probably two if you want resiliency or high availability. But again, we support both hybrid and distributed. And obviously we support all the integration that Ido mentioned. Whatever type of, let's say, solution that you may have on the network, we will try to integrate with. So we have over 150 integrations currently. Most of them are free of charge. This is part of the base license. Few of them are required additional licenses, but most of them, as I mentioned, is free of charge. And if we don't already have integration, we can create one. So we have an open API module where you can use either REST or DEX to integrate with your own tool and import and export the data and share the context of every single endpoint, or maybe using your solution as an enforcement point and create a policy towards this specific solution. So I won't go, let's say, deep dive into the marketing stuff because I don't like it very much. So let's start with the demo. And of course, if you have any questions, just please write it, and we will try to do it interactive during the demo, and I will take it from there. So I assume that you are still able to see my screen. Yes. So this is I will go through several dashboards. Each dashboard is actually giving you specific type of, or let's say, specific pieces of data. Actually, 3 dashboards. This is the main one, though. This is where all the magic happens. So every piece of data that we are collecting, either it's with iInspect, which is the IDS module, which has another dashboard for ICS specific, let's say, information. We also export the data towards this specific dashboard. So all the data can be found here, and there is a reason for that, because this is where you create all the policies. Okay, so all the integrations, all the policies, all the, let's say, licenses is managed here. And I will go through all the dashboards that relates to this specific webinar. But let's first, look at the basic stuff. So here is the main screen. Here we can search for specific asset in the network. I can search IP addresses, MAC addresses, usernames, switches, whatever is IP-based identity on the network. I can search it right here. We have also the asset inventory tab that I will show in a few minutes. But Forescout is actually working on the module of let's say objects. So we have two types of objects. The first one is a static object. So the static object is actually CIDRs, so IP ranges that you import. By the way, we support a segment API that we can integrate with your IPAM solution. So we can import all the IP segments in the network to Forescout. And if the environment is very dynamic, then this is a very good solution. Then you don't need to do things manually. But the main point is to put all the segments in the right scope. This is where you can control the actual policies. So you can scope each individual policy. You can scope each individual discover techniques into a specific IP range, CIDR. So this is the first one. Now this is static. The second group of objects is the dynamic objects. So dynamic object can be, let's say, Windows, okay, or let's say a specific OT device. Now, assuming that a new IP is connected to the network, at the beginning, I'm not aware what it is, okay? It could be anything. Now, once I'm running my data collection techniques towards this specific IP, I'm able to analyze what exactly this endpoint is. Now, when I analyze what the endpoint is, I can put it in a group which is populated in a very dynamic and automatic way. And I will give you a quick example of that. So in my environment, I have around 640, exactly 640 endpoints. The first thing that I'm doing, I divide this specific number, this large number, into smaller groups. So everything that's falling under the Forescout deployment, which is 640 IP addresses, I divide into smaller groups. So for example, I have 159 Windows devices, and the condition to be part of this specific policy is to have an operating system named Windows, no matter which Windows, and I will get to it later on. And the action is to put these specific IPs into a group named Windows. And this is why the group itself is a dynamic group, because I don't know which IP will be within the group unless I identify what exactly the IPs are. Now, if we will continue with the Windows, example, the next stage is to have assessment on specific IPs, which is only the Windows IP addresses on my network, the Windows devices. So the first thing that I may want to do is to understand if these Windows devices are managed by me. So either I managed them via WMI or RPC, either they have installed my agent, which it calls a secure connector, or I can manually approve them. But the point is that I have 34 and 37 unknown Windows machines within my environment. Now, how we block things? I mean, if we want to block them, okay, we can automate this thing by creating a new, let's say, a new group. In this case, I will use unknown Windows devices. And I will go straight to the control part. And under that, if I will go to campus, wired, and unmanaged workstation, I can see that I have all the managed Windows devices. By the way, the environment is alive, so the numbers are changing all the time. But here I can put some controls, okay? So I can control the endpoint on variety of ways, okay? I can assign it into a VLAN named guest. I can, as Edo mentioned, we integrate with the firewall, with the next generation firewall. I can tag the endpoints with the firewall tag, which is guest, and then the firewall policies relates to the source tag guest and destination, whatever the rest of the network, and I'm blocking the actual traffic coming towards the network from that specific these specific endpoints. But the main point is to have the visibility and to understand what exactly the endpoints are, okay, and then have control based on visibility. Now, if we will go back to Windows, we may want to run several few checks and probably have, you know, other types of integrations. So for example, I can run antivirus compliance check. So I have 90 Windows machines that I can manage, okay? I have 77 Windows machines that are not updated, okay, for 2 weeks. So if I will press that V, okay, I can update the antivirus on those Windows machines automatically, okay? I don't need to do anything else. I just need to give the command to the system to do it. By the way, I can install or start the antivirus. So in this case, I can start the antivirus if it's not running. And by the way, you can create your own specific scripts to delete applications, to install applications, update applications. So if it does not exist here, we support every type of scripting capabilities that you can have and run from our appliances towards the endpoint, or to send those scripts to a specific folder on the endpoint side and run it over there on the endpoint itself. Now, when it comes to risk, you may want to use again different policies. You can search for critical vulnerabilities, for example. So you can search for specific CVEs, KBs, and so on and so on. And this is just, you know, just on Windows. So you can have it on whatever type of devices that you have on the network. You can have several checks, several policies that will give you the proper visibility to have a better decision, a very calculated decision, what to do with the endpoint in any given time, in real time, okay? In any given time. One more thing that I wanted to show you in this specific dashboard is the amount of data that we collect on every single endpoint. In this case, I will take a managed Windows, and I will also share with you one specific OT device. In this case, let's take this one. Okay, and you will be able to see how many pieces of data we have on each device. Let me open up the profile, and here it is. So the basic stuff is known. You know, it's a workstation, it's a Windows 7. I know the vendor and the model in some cases when I can read the Mac UI. I have the IP address, I have the DNS name, I have the information on the user. I have the Windows processes that are running on the machine. So every process can be found, and I will show it also in the on the asset inventory tab. We have, as I mentioned, the user information. Because we are integrating to the Active Directory. So if you want to search phone numbers, email addresses, names, groups, then it's possible within our system, and obviously create a policy, an automated policy around this type of information. The network access, this is something that is very unique to us because we are querying the actual switches, okay? We are able to show the customer how the access port of this specific endpoint is configured. So let's say that you want to enroll, to roll out to 802.1x deployment. Now, one of the most complicated thing when you troubleshoot 802.1x is the configuration of the network, the networking side, okay? The actual switch port. So here it is. You have the running config of the switch port. You know what switch it is, what is the switch port, and the actual running config on that specific port. You have also the external devices. So if you want to create a blacklist or whitelist of external devices that you want to allow endpoints to connect to the network, to their PCs, laptops, and so on, then it's possible. Okay, you can block any external device that connect to the endpoint itself. All the applications, which type of application, the version, the users that allow to run the application, the security labels, because we integrate with SIEM, we're receiving syslogs for the SIEM, we can parse that and tag the specific events per endpoint, and you can actually take specific events and create a policy that said, okay, if I'm seeing events XYZ, then I want to remediate the endpoint, I want to block the endpoint, I want to block certain type of network access to that endpoint, and so on and so on. And we also calculate the risk. I will get to the risk later on. Now, this is, this is easy. This is managed device, okay? You can install the agent, you have the capability to run WMI or whatever techniques that you want to use. But what about unmanaged devices? So with unmanaged devices, I will divide those to two groups, okay? The first one is IoT, pure IoT, could be camera, printers, everything that falls under IoT. So when it comes to IoT, we have the IoT posture assessment, which give you the possibility to have a second authentication, okay, for unmanaged devices. So if you think about it, how you can make sure, okay, that the IoT device that connects to the network is really an IoT device and not, just a MAC spoofing attack. So when you initially create a fingerprint and you authenticate IoT devices with MAC address, then obviously it's not strong enough. It's not enough, never. Even if you run it 802.1x/MAB, then it's not enough to authenticate these type of endpoints with just with MAC address. So in our system, we have the IoT posture assessment engine, where you can actually give Forescout the credentials to manage those devices. It could be Telnet, SSH, SNMP v3, SNMP v2, CURL, okay, because we support that as well. And we will query those IoT devices with your own credentials. So we will make sure that it's not just the MAC address that looks like an IoT device. We will make sure that this is your real IoT device. And you can use it also to discover if you have compromised passwords, compromised credentials on the network. So let's assume that you already know that you have few credentials that are compromised, okay? You can give us those credentials and we will tell you where you have credentials vulnerability on the network. So this is, again, a very powerful tool. The second part of unmanaged devices, it's IoT, it's OT, sorry, and ICS, endpoints. I will show a profile right here, but I will also share with you, I will also open another dashboard with more detailed information. But again, the data is shared between the dashboards. The reason for that, as I mentioned, you can create everything right here, which is very important to have one single pane of glass where you can search for everything. Right. So this should be good enough. This is a pure OT device. Okay, so this is ICS supervisory. We are not in this specific device. We are not running, at least in my environment, we are not running any active scan-on. So all the information that you can see here is purely collected via span by looking at the traffic. And here you can see that you have a lot of information that can give you a certain confidence about this specific endpoint. So you have the OT role, you have the IP address, you have the OT risk, which can modified and pre-configured by you because you want to minimize the noise of any alerts on these type of environments. The importance of the device, the client protocol, the server protocol. on which Purdue level it lives, because we are able to analyze on which Purdue level this specific device is belong to. And you have also all the CVEs, all the vulnerabilities that discovered on that specific device. So you can actually cut specific piece of data and create a policy around it. I can take this data, this specific one, and say, okay, if I see it, I want to do something. I want to block internet access to this device, or I want to limit access to the rest of the network. In most cases, you will not block those devices within their own, let's say, ICS environment or VLAN, because this type of environment are, by their nature, are very you don't want to touch. You don't want to touch those devices, right?
Okay, Kobe, sorry to stop you. There are two questions coming here. One question is if can we check if the log the user has the local admin rights in the system?
Yes, of course. We can actually, it's just a script, a command that you can run either remotely or on directly on the endpoint, as I mentioned, and you will know immediately.
Another one is if we can import and scan a custom IOC.
Yes, of course. We have capabilities either with our own IDS or either by integrating with other security tools. But the answer is yes. You can import IOC. You can search for specific hashes over the network, or even as a file. And I will show. You know what? I will show it. I will show it again. Let me just minimize this. Okay, never mind. 1 second, guys. We'll take here policy. So I'm sure that you guys are familiar with the latest vulnerabilities, Log4j, SolarWinds, and so on and so on. Let me show you how we do things. First of all, in this dashboard, and I will show you how we are able to load hashes on our IDS module. So first of all, we have the ability to run specific queries on the endpoints. It's part of the vulnerability and response. So let's take just for the example. Okay, let's take SolarWinds, where it is, SolarWinds. So here's SolarWinds. Let's say that I want to create a policy around that. Next, here is where the actual control of the policy scope exist. So as I mentioned, I can choose on which part of the network I want to run this specific query. In this case, let's go for all IP. Next. Right, and here we are searching specific path, specific file with specific checksums, and I will show it here. Okay, right here. Okay, so we have the command and script. We are searching for specific file. We have here all the expression that we want to use, and in our IDS dashboard, we are able to import specific hashes and find it within the network traffic itself. Here is on the device. Okay, so we run the query on specific devices that we want to do it, but not over network. So this is just one example. By the way, okay, our research team is running very, very fast. So every time that there is a major, let's say a major thing on the market, in this case SolarWinds, the last one was Log4j. After 2 or 3 days, we are coming with policy templates that gives our customers the ability to see if they are vulnerable and where exactly they are vulnerable, including networking devices that were impacted with Log4j, including, you know, operating specific operating system, servers, even on laptops. If you want to check, this thing is possible. But the main thing is that the database is living one. Okay, so we are not just, you know, giving the customer one package and that's it. We release every month a package with new database. Either it's with profiling, either with vulnerability and response capabilities and scripting. So we live the business, as we say. And that's about it. By the way, it's worth to mention that when you want to create a policy, it's just, you know, 2 clicks, because you have literally templates for everything. Okay, so let's say that you want to run antivirus compliance. You can, you know, just check next, because I already have one. Let me change the name. Again, I can change the scope of the policy. Next. And I can choose, let's say that I have a specific vendor. Let's say that I have, I don't know, McAfee, last update, next. And basically that's it. You have a policy ready, okay? So you can modify all the policy templates, and you can create your own. You can create totally custom policy. But again, the main point is to be as flexible as we can, because we understand that every customer has different needs, different technologies, different products, and we want to cover most of the use cases on every customer that you are getting in. Okay, so totally flexible, totally customizable. Another thing that I wanted to show you is the asset inventory, and by that we will finish with that specific dashboard. Here in the asset inventory, you can actually have it's the same visibility, it's the same data, but you are looking at this and in the opposite way. So if in the home tab I'm searching for a specific endpoint, and then I open his profile and I understand what exactly what type of information I have on this specific IP, then in the asset inventory you are searching pieces of data and see where they are existing on the network. So for example, I can search for applications. So I'm searching for a specific application. Now this is the entire application repository of my environment. So I can search whatever application I want. For example, I can search for Spotify. I know that I have Spotify version 7.6. It's part of the unauthorized Windows applications because I pre-configured that. And I have 12 hosts that running this specific Spotify with this specific version. And here below, you can have the list of all 12 hosts. Now, you can search for whatever comes on your mind, okay? For example, let's say open ports or services, okay? Let me show you that, because this thing is very cool. You can, let's say that you want to understand if you have, you know, clear text protocols open on the network. So here you have Telnet. You have 45 endpoints that Telnet is open service on those endpoints, and here you have a list. So you can search whatever you can think of, hardware, monitors, motherboards. You can search for cloud tenants, services, whatever, okay? So this tool is very useful when you initially deploy Forescout and want to understand, you want to actually understand what is happening on the network, okay? So this tool can help you in so many ways. that once it deployed, it's very hard to move to another solution. Now, this is it for this specific dashboard for now. Okay, let me jump over to additional two dashboards. The reason that they are in separate dashboards are because the amount of data, the analytics that we have per specific, let's say, domain part. In some cases, I can tell you that, for example, our iInspect module, which is the OT-ICS module, are very often not the product for the security teams. So we can sell it to the security team, and obviously, you know, this is great product for the security team. But in some cases, our end customers is the ICS engineers. So they need a separate dashboard. They need a separate window where they can get the analysis they need on their environment. And now, obviously, we support multiple dashboards, multiple widgets that you can run. Let me just log into this. Yeah. One second, guys. So this is the deep analytics for OT-ICS. Let me jump to to our new UI. One second. Here. So we are shifting to our new UI. We will probably finish the transaction in 3 months from now. But okay, let's go over this specific dashboard. So the first thing that we are doing, obviously, as I mentioned, we collect, in most cases, we collect the data on this type of environments by seeing the actual traffic. It could be either with span, or if the customer has some kind of, let's say, packet broker, Ixia, Gigamon, Arista, whatever, then he can aggregate all the traffic from the access layer and send it directly to Forescout. But the thing is that the first thing that we are doing is we map all the endpoints within the environment. Okay, as you can see here, we divide them within the Purdue level. Okay, so I have the IOs, the RTUs, PLCs, the DCS, all the HMIs, and up until, you know, the pure IT environment that you can see on level 4. But you can drill down to each individual group, okay, and see how this specific group is behaving on the network. So first thing, we are putting our sensor in learning mode when we learn all the environment, like any IDS. And then we can move forward towards the detection mode once we understood perfectly how our network, our ICS/OT network behaves. We can move forward to the detection, and we can raise alerts on any abnormal behavior or any change of configuration, or so on and so on. And I will show it also in the alerts. So as I mentioned, you can drill down to each type of device, each type of group, and then obviously drill down to each type of device and understand how this device is behaving, with whom he's connecting to, I mean, communicating with, and you can have all the asset details right here with this window. So you have the asset risk, the asset properties, asset configuration, and so on and so on. Now, one thing that is very unique to our platform, by meaning our platform is all-in-one platform, is the ability to have let me jump to the alerts first. to have mapping of alerts into the Mitre attack methodology. So let me show you a quick example. If I will drill down to this specific type of event, I can drill down to one specific event from here, and I can see with whom this specific type of device is communicating with, a summary of the event, the source destination, all the information is right here, the event itself, what type of detection mechanism we use to identify this specific threat, and the mapping to the Mitre for ICS. So this thing is new. This feature is introduced in the last version of our module, of the iInspect module. But it's something that will help you to understand and mitigate the risks and prioritize the risks on your ICS environment. Now, obviously, you can download a very short pickup per each event where you can analyze and use it for forensic to understand what really happened in specific events that you want to investigate. Now you can create, as I mentioned, you can create multiple dashboards for multiple, let's say, multiple views. Okay, so if you want to concentrate on specific protocol, that's great. You can create multiple ones. So for example, Delta V or VNet IP. This will show you only the assets that we discover communicating with this specific protocol, and you can analyze it, and obviously you have all the scoring right here. And at the end, as I mentioned, once you understand and scope the deployment of the iInspect and understand how your ICS environment is behaving, and now you can create your whitelist and move to the detection mode, which is like any other IDS. Okay. By the way, the major differences between Forescout iInspect, I'm just talking about the pure IDS, to other IDS product on the market is the following. So the first one is, I just show you the mapping for Mitre. It's something that is, again, I'm pretty sure that the competitors will follow up, but again, this something is very unique to us at the moment as all-in-one solution. The second one is the amount of protocols that we support. So we have like around 200. I will share the list and our flexibility to support protocols that are not part of our compatibility. So you can actually create specific, it calls SD scripts based on Lua to detect and analyze specific traffic, specific protocols that are not under our compatibility. Now, the second part that is very, very important lately is the ability to, because we are a platform, a unified platform, is the ability to retain the options for active query and control, even in OT-ICS environment. So most of the IDS products, again, most of them, like 99% of them, are passive only. They do have some kind of integrations, but again, it's not a unified platform, and there is a huge difference. As I mentioned, all the data that we collect here in this specific dashboard for ICS OT is also part of our policy engine dashboard, which is right here. So I can actually create a very specific policies if I have enough indicators to have some kind of control or some kind of active capabilities when it comes to OT-ICS. Okay, so I can say if I have CVE with CVSS score above 9.5, and I saw a suspicious behavior, and I saw that there is an unidentified user that also connected to my environment in the same time, then I want to block access on my firewall, okay, for example. So we have all the options on the table, as we say. The main point is to, again, give the customer all the flexibility he needs first for discovery and visibility, and then for remediation control, and prioritize the risk on his environment per all the network domains that we exist on, okay? So we are looking on the entire enterprise network as, one unified network. And by that, can create policies accordingly. Now, this thing is, getting me to the next topic, which is iSegment. Now, iSegment is a very unique approach of monitoring network behavior. Most of the networking behavior products on the market, they are looking on, let's say, network anomaly detection, like tools like StealthWatch or Darktrace or tools like that, but they are not segmentation tools in a way that we are not looking at the amount of data, okay, or the payload of the data when it comes to segmentation, but we look at the business context of the device and what it's doing on the network. So when I showed you the first dashboard, which is here, the first thing one of the first things that I showed you is that I can identify every IP and give a business context around every IP on the network. So I know that this is a Windows device. I know that this is ICS device. I know that this is a printer. I know this is IoT, and so on and so on. So we create a dashboard, okay, which is a very nice matrix that will show you how different business-driven entities on the networks are communicating within each other. So let's take, few examples, okay? Let's go to the OT Purdue dimension. If I will drill down to that, so I have, multiple Purdue levels, but I can see that I have something within my Purdue, within my OT ICS environment, trying to communicate directly to the internet. Okay, I can see that the specific host is coming from the Purdue level number 2. Okay, and if I want to understand what type of services are being used and see what type of or what is the user or the endpoint, sorry, that is trying to communicate directly to the internet, I can do so by first understand the services that are being used. So here I have all the list of the services. I have the occurrences, the amount of, let's say, sessions or the times you wanted to create this type of traffic towards the internet. The first time that I saw the specific flows and the last update that I received. Okay, now keep in mind that here I don't have to use span. I can use NetFlow or SFlow because here I don't really do DPI. I just look at the headers for IP addresses, source destination, and I correlate it within the database of Forescout, so I can give you the knowledge of what the device, what is the exactly device, the context, the business context of the device, and to which zones is trying to communicate. And if I will drill down to occurrences per each, let's say per each service, I can see the source IP. So this is something that comes from my OT ICS environment, and this is the destination IP over the internet. So this is a very unique way to look how the entire network is behaving. Okay, most of the time when you want to drill down the analysis of network behavior, then either you are looking on the firewall logs, which is a disaster, or either you are using tools that they are not fully aware of what the endpoint is. They are very aware on the traffic, but they don't really know what the endpoint is. So we aggregate endpoint information with the actual network traffic, and we create the network baseline, okay, on the network. Now, let's take another quick example. This time enterprise IoT, and I will show you how you do controls based on the actual traffic and not the endpoint properties. Now, this is something is very cool. So as I mentioned, this is the baseline of the network traffic. By the way, what is the time? Oh, I need to be quick. We have the enterprise IoT group zone. Within the enterprise IoT, we have multiple groups. We have printers, smart TVs, Xbox, and so on and so on. And I can see that printers have communication directly to the internet. I want to understand what is the services first. I want to understand the baseline of the traffic between those zones. So I can see DNS, HTTPS, FTP, NTP, and HTTP. The first thing that I want to create a policy. Now, keep in mind that while creating the policy, I'm not really interfering the traffic. So this is visibility only, okay? I'm not touching the traffic because I'm not a firewall. I'm not sitting in line. I'm not doing any of these things. So just visibility, just monitor the segmentation policy and see if I'm ready to apply the policy on my enforcement points like a firewall, like ACL on the switches and so on. So I have a policy that I created between the enterprise IoT zone to the internet. I deny by default all these services except HTTP services, which is 443 and 80, which I want to allow for, let's say, updates and so on. Now I have several options that I can run on my metric. The first one, I can filter and see where I have a policy exist between which zones, okay? So you will see the orange box right here. By the way, there is a nice legend what each color means. In this case, some type of traffic is allowed and another is not. And I can filter the non-legit traffic only. So in this case, when I will drill down to a yellow dot, I will be able to see only 3 services because I approved 2 services. I approved HTTP, HTTPS, but these services are not allowed between those zones. Now, keep in mind that I told you guys that we import all the data to our policy engine. So if I will go and create a new policy, okay, which is based on the traffic. So let me quickly create one. We'll create segment. Next. Okay, now here I can choose on which policy I want to refer. Okay, so if you remember, I had 3 policies here. These 3, I have it right here in my policy engine. Okay, let me open up this one, and I want to refer only to the enterprise IoT to internet. So I will click next. Okay, finish, apply. Good. It will take a few seconds, guys, sorry. We will go to the Home tab, and then I will go to the iSegment policy. So this is the one that I just created. Now, as you can see here, I catch 4 endpoints that violates my, my iSegment policy. So if I will go here to the visibility part of iSegment, okay, and I will drill down to the yellow dot, go to the occurrences. Let's take, I don't know, FTP, for example. Okay. So I have these hosts, by the way, as I mentioned, this is a live. So the 4 hosts that I just catch, by the way, it will be 6 in a minute, okay? But these 4 hosts are also shown here. So this one, this dashboard will give you the visibility, will give you the option to create all the segmentation policies. Either it's a macro segmentation or micro segmentation, okay? You can modify and monitor the policies before you actually put controls on the network, okay? And here, once you catch the endpoint that violates your policy, you can do whatever you want, because here you have integration to the entire infrastructure. You can send an email just for notification. You can send Ceph or syslog or integrate with the SIEM. You can block it on the firewall, on the Palo Alto firewall. You can apply ACL. You can shut the port. You can choose whatever you want to do on the endpoint, okay? Just based on the traffic. And this is our approach. If I may, I don't know if it's possible, but I want to show you also the dashboards, the view dashboards for management and SOC and NOC teams. If not, then we will move to the Q&A. What you are saying, guys? Andres?
From my side, it would be probably interesting to see more.
Great, great. Sounds great. I
And
hope that
it's also very good for the recording part.
Yeah.
So to those who actually skipped this during their busy day time, they will definitely find it very interesting later.
Great. So this is like, more colorful dashboard, let's say, where you can have the total visibility. And by the way, you can create, again, multiple dashboards for multiple groups within the IT, within the security teams, and so on. And here you have the total numbers, overall numbers of the device visibility. So how many type of, let's say, devices you have. And by the way, you can drill down to each one of them. So if you would just want to see Cisco devices or let's say, let's take compliance, because this is something that is more interesting. But let's say that you want to drill down and just have the 17% non-compliance devices. You can click it, and here you have a list for all non-compliance devices within the network. So overall information, either it's a compliance, what are the compliance trend over time, so how many non-compliance in a period of time, the compliance, the custom risk score, which is something that is very important to prioritize the risk and give the teams, the help desk team, the security teams, to deal with the most important vulnerable devices on the network. The reason for non-compliance could be antivirus, could be CVE, could be anything that you configured within the policy, and you have it right here. In addition, you have a network access control policies where you can actually see how many devices were being blocked, how many devices were being approved with, let's say, a voucher for a period of time. So it really depends on you. You can create and customize these dashboards as you want. By the way, for management, to have an overall view of the network, this is great. They don't really need the Java console and all the deep analysis thing. This will give them exactly the data that they need to make a decision based on our visibility platform. Unfortunately, we don't have another hour, so we will probably have additional webinar around Cyber MDX and the new module that we will launch next week, which is the risk module. Something that is very interesting, how we move toward, let's say, a data-driven company where we collect data from all over the world, and we use machine learning algorithms to give a real-time risk scoring per each device on the network, and create segmentation based on risk. So very, very interesting. This is the new world. So I guess that we will have additional webinar. I hope I enjoyed to be with you today, and I hope it was interesting to you guys. And I want to thank you